Greetings, my name is Timothy Collinson and I'm the Faculty Librarian for Technology. This video is going to take you through some of the details and intricacies of referencing and some of the support we can offer. It's really a follow-on to the plagiarism video that you might have already seen, and if you've not watched that you might want to go and check that out now. But for the moment, let me share with you some slides and we'll hopefully see some notes that I can show you. We're going to leap right in there with an example of a book. So this is by Andy Packer and it's on building measurement. Don't worry too much about the actual subjects or the titles, but it's really just to give you an idea of how this might work. So if you've watched the plagiarism video, you'll know that we're trying to avoid plagiarism by referencing work, and that involves essentially identifying what we've used in our assignments or our dissertations to build upon, and hopefully the idea is to make sure that that item is retrievable by your readers. So you can see here an example of a book and the library catalogue record for it, and you can find all the bibliographic details you need there to construct a reference. But one little trick that I like to point out is that actually if you look for the book in our discovery service, such as this looks like, you'll see over on the right hand side, increasingly now, you'll find a cite button or a cite book button, and that will actually put together a reference for you. You'll need to select APA as the style, but do use that with a little bit of caution. Sometimes it puts italics where it shouldn't, or it puts place names in that it doesn't need to, and that kind of thing. So I will show you a tool at the end of this presentation called Referencing at Portsmouth. Always check the cite button or any other tools you're using against Referencing at Portsmouth to make sure that it's correct. Here's another example of a book in the library catalogue, and again you've got all the bibliographic information you need there, the author, the title, publication details and so on. So if you are borrowing a book, do make sure you've made a note of those details, or as I say, use the cite button from Discovery. And here's an example of that book actually laid out as an APA 7th edition reference. And if we just look at some of the, and here's a chapter in an edited book for comparison, kind of similar, but just some little wrinkles. And we'll have a look at the wrinkles now. These red highlights are not everything you need to know. They're just some of the very common pitfalls that we get asked about. So for example, do look out for the fact that you only need the initials of an author. Personally, I like to, it helps my memory if I write down the full name when I'm making a note of a reference, but when it actually comes to constructing the reference, you only need their initials. And then in the title, you can see there that it's in down style. So it's all lowercase except for the first word and any proper names. And in this example, you can see that there's an abbreviation and that goes in capitals. So again, it's just a little wrinkle, and sometimes those cite buttons are not very good at doing that. And then you used to need the place of publication and the publisher. You'll be pleased to know that in 7th edition, you only need to know the publisher. So that makes that a lot more simple. And then down in the chapter in an edited book, you can see that you've got to have an in statement. So no longer is the title of the chapter that you found in italics. It's actually the book that's still in italics. So you can see there that BIM and quantity surveying is still in italics. And the other little wrinkle to look out for is with the page numbers that you'll need to include if you're just putting a chapter in. You can just put PP dot or P dot if it's only one page, and that's not normally included in a reference. So do look out for that little wrinkle. And as I said, do note that these are only some things to look out for, not everything you need to know. Okay, so for comparison, let's have a look at an ebook, and you can find them in the library catalogue. They're all there, or you can go directly to one of our ebook collections. There's a link in the notes of these slides that takes you to a list if you want to use that, or you can find things through the library catalogue and then go through to the ebook collection. And here in this example, I've gone into ebook central to find that same book as an ebook. And again, you can see the little cite button there, which is quite useful. Again, using it with caution. You can see a lot of the bibliographic details. So if you want to construct the reference yourself, all of the information should be there. just remember that you're using the APA style that you need to select if you do choose the Cite button there. So again, this one laid out as an actual APA 7th edition reference would look like this, very, very similar, but now as well as the publisher there, you've actually got a link to the ebook and the way that that would be laid out. And some little wrinkles here that you've still got the down style of the title, you've still just got the publisher and no place name or anything like that. But this URL under 6th edition used to be just to eBook Central. Now it's to the exact ebook, which makes a lot more sense, frankly. So you do need to put in the whole URL. It is a bit longer and a little bit more ugly, but that's just life, and it will help your readers find the thing a bit more easily. And do look out for the fact it doesn't need a full stop there at the end. Okay, so if we move on to a journal article, for example, here's an example of one from the International Journal of Strategic Property Management. You know, a lot of the bibliographic details are there for you on often every page, but sometimes not all of it. So again, make sure you're taking good notes. And then sometimes down at the bottom of the page, there's a little bit more. If we press on, this is the way that the reference would look like under APA 7th edition. And some of the wrinkles there, this particular journal article has a DOI, a digital object identifier, which is a kind of ISBN for a journal article essentially, and means that even if the URL dies, that DOI will remain the same. Don't worry about it. Some have them, some don't. If they have it, you need to put it. If they don't, you don't need to put it. Some of the little wrinkles there, again, the down style throughout, so you don't have to put capitals except for the first word. But do notice that the journal title there in italics is capitalized throughout, as you might expect, unless it's a small word like of. One little thing that a lot of people notice is that the volume number there, number 17, is in italics, but the issue number, number 2, is not in italics. It's very subtle. I have no idea why that's the case, but that's the way that APA lays things out. So do pay attention to that. And here you can see for a journal article that you don't need to put the PP like you did for a chapter in an edited book. And then once again, you do not need a full stop at the end of a URL or a DOI. So again, just some little wrinkles to look out for. Now, you might have kind of heard of all of that and looked at those slides and think, oh, this is all too kind of much. And you wouldn't be alone. Even Charles Darwin, in his book, The Origin of Species, says here, I cannot give references and authorities for my several statements. I must trust the reader, reposing some confidence in my accuracy. No doubt errors will have crept in. Now, I hope I've always been cautious, and he plans on doing it later. Now, that's really nice for Charles Darwin way back when he was writing Origin of Species. Unfortunately, is not acceptable for us here at the University of Portsmouth. So we do need to make sure we're referencing, and we do need to make sure we're doing it correctly, which is why we've offered these slides, and we've got some support that I'll talk about at the end. Now, you might be thinking that managing all of these is kind of quite tricky. And if you're just doing half a dozen references, to be honest, just constructing them, you know, in your Word document or whatever, is probably as easy as anything. But if you're perhaps a final year student going into your dissertation, or you're a master's student, or certainly at PhD level, you might have so many references that actually you want to begin to manage them more efficiently. And then you might want to start looking at reference management software. And these bits of software allow you to collect, organize, store, often link to your references and construct citations and all of that kind of thing. And they can be quite powerful. EndNote is the one that the university offers to students, but there's also ones like Mendeley, which is very popular, and Zotero as well. And I'll give you some links that can help you get into that kind of thing, or you can have a look at the notes of these slides. Some software now even lets you collaborate and share, so that if you're part of a doing some group work, or if you're part of a research team, you can actually share your reference collections, and that can make it much more easy to say, okay, yes, that's really good. We've looked at that. We've done something with that. Oh, this is something we need to look at, or whatever it is. And that can be really useful. So if you need those features, look out for them. They can be quite useful. So the kind of software that we have for you includes our Referencing at Portsmouth website, which I'll show you in a moment. It includes the cite buttons that you might find in databases, as you can see on the right-hand side there of the slide, or it might say something like cite book. When you choose that or click on that button, you almost invariably have to choose APA as the referencing style after that, or if you get the choice, APA 7th edition, not 6th edition, so look out for that. You might be using the word reference tool. It can be really helpful. Some people come a little bit unstuck with it, so try it if it's helpful for you. But again, always make sure that any results it's produced are compared against referencing at Portsmouth, and you might want to use bibliographic management software like EndNote or, as I said, Mendeley or Zotero. So look out for those. And there's note the URLs in the notes of these slides that point you to further help on those. So here's referencing at Portsmouth, and this is our library homepage, and where you can find referencing at Portsmouth, how you get to it from our library homepage is either to look for the referencing slide picture on the film strip here, or to look for the word referencing where it might appear somewhere on the website, and it often does, or to look for this blue button with the R in it, which will take you to our referencing support website called Referencing at Portsmouth. And this page does offer you some further additional referencing support on how you might, for example, why you need to reference, how you might critically evaluate a source, reference management software, as I've just shown you. It also links to the contact us for help stuff there. So you might want to email us, you might want to chat with us 24/7, you might want to phone or come and talk to us in person or whatever, and you're very welcome to. But you should be able to see there in the middle, the top link is to the APA 7th edition. And if you're a technology student, that's what you should be clicking on, and that will take you to Referencing at Portsmouth for APA 7th edition. And you can see there at the top that you get some basic principles, which gives the background on what you're trying to achieve, how and why. And then you get some in-text citation help, which explains the citation part of the reference. Remember that all references have two parts, the reference in your reference list and the citation pointing to it in the main text of your document. And that gives you some support on that. And then after that, you get all the kind of examples that we might have, whether they're books, web pages, maps, or whatever it is that you're trying to reference. Now, we'll take just one example here, rather than go through everything in detail. And I'm going to look at journal articles for you, because that's very commonly used. And if you click on journal articles, you can then click on online journal articles, and that expands this bit of text here. And you can no doubt see there that under reference, it will give you a template that you have to follow, and it will then give you an actual example. And then under in-text citation, it shows two examples of how you might go about that. And if that example's not enough for you, the more button there next to that little triangular arrow will actually give you many more examples, which might be really helpful for you. So we hope you like that tool, and we would warmly recommend it to you. And we would say that whatever other tools you're using, cite buttons, word referencing, things you found online, sometimes you can take photos of books and it will turn it into a reference for you using some apps, that kind of thing. Always check it against Referencing at Portsmouth to make sure that it's absolutely kind of laid out absolutely correctly. Do get in touch with us. There's loads of ways of doing it. Marie and myself are very happy to help as well. If you've got some very specific questions about referencing, do get in touch with us. And we would, of course, very happily help you as best we can there. And we would wish you all the best for your studies, and good luck with them. Do get in touch with us if you need to. Thank you.